Welcome to the podcast. Tell me your story. This is your host, Chris Baker. Nice to be back once again. It's been a little while, but today we got a special story. You've probably seen it a couple times already this week. He's been all over the news, all over the news feed. Give it up for Kevin Rogers. So, like we always do, we're going to jump into just how it all started for Kevin. Where were you born at? Where does your roots take place?
It all started, I was born in Norwalk at Fisher Titus. All the way back, I'm going to tell my age, 1974. April 27th, 1974. So yeah, right here in Norwalk. So I've never left.
So this is in the 70s. This is before technology took over.
Way before.
So what did you do as a child? What was your childhood like before nowadays where it's all smartphones, computers, all that stuff?
Bicycles and mud. Dirt. Bicycles. We'd ride bicycles, all of our friends, I lived down an old country back road. Still there, 51 years later. I'm still at the same place where they brought me. I guess we moved there when I was like maybe 2. I think we moved there in 1976. My mom and dad had bought a house there, and I've been there ever since. And had neighbors, and we all just rode bikes and played tag, played football as kids, always outside.
Just like my childhood, we were out to the streetlights, man.
When the streetlights come on, you better get home.
Mom's calling. She's saying, "Get over here."
We would always be at someone's house eating or something. But when the streetlights came on, you better be coming home.
That was the thing. If you knew where all the kids were at because that's where all the bikes would be at.
Yes,
they'd be laying out in the front yard. Good times back in those days.
Yeah, that's nothing like it.
The only times they would actually call the cops on us is when we were playing in the street, like football or something. I had a neighbor, Mary, who would always call the cops on me.
Out in the country, we don't even have. They would have to call the sheriff's station, so the sheriff would have to come from Norwalk all the way to Collins, 15 minutes away. So we didn't get the cops called on us too often. We wasn't.
What was the most popular game you would say though?
Probably our backyard footballs.
Backyard footballs. We always played it. See, during that time period, in my childhood, it was football, of course, yes. Baseball was a big thing, though. I don't really see it nowadays where everybody, the kids in the neighborhood, we get together. We all had our own gloves. We had our own baseball bats, and we would find the diamond to play.
We never, in Collins, we're not buying nothing. We don't even have a baseball. We don't have any parks. We didn't have any baseball diamonds. So, but when we did play baseball, it was in the backyard. Take our shirts off for the bases and
make your own bases, make your own field.
We did have at the fire station. We had a basketball hoop, and the rim was always like this because it was always broke. But we always would go there and play. My mom and dad, and my brothers and my sister, we'd always go there and play the game Pig. So it was always fun, even as the family. And not always just me and my friends. It was even me and my family. We'd go play Pig or that game Around the World where you'd have to shoot it and go around and back around. And that was always fun.
That was one of my favorites, Around the World. Even nowadays, when the kids in the neighborhood ask me to come down and shoot with them, I'm like, okay, we'll play horse, we'll play pig, we'll play Around the World, whatever it is, and let's see how good you really are.
Yes, it's nice to do that now because a lot of kids just want to stay inside with the technology.
Yeah.
We didn't, as you said, we didn't have that.
No, that wasn't an option. The only phone we had during that time period was the house phone.
Your house phone with a cord.
With a cord,
so you could only go so far.
We didn't get the wireless phone until probably when I was going into my teens.
Yeah.
And then that's when the cell phones actually started coming out. I still remember my dad coming and calling the house and how amazed I was. Just hearing him like, how are you doing that? And then seeing he had this big old block phone in his hand, like
that, or when they first came out, they had my very first phone was a bag phone. So you carried everything in the in this bag, like the battery and everything was in the bag, and you had to carry this bag around. But he was always so cool because no matter where you was at, you could call anyone.
Like I could call you from anywhere. I don't got to be in the house to call
and
you.
now, now they fit in your pocket.
Yeah, and then towards maybe not so much your childhood, but mine, we started getting dial-up. We started getting AOL and all that stuff, and talk about phones. You had to actually be off the phone in order to use the AOL.
Get the AOL.
Yeah, to get
and then they would do that little thing to when you was logging on. But yeah, you could be on the phone, on the telephone, and to get onto the internet because you had to use that line for the internet.
Yeah, because you would pick up the phone and it'd be like, "Come on, you got to get off the internet."
Yeah.
You would hear a bunch of like weird sounds coming from the line. And you're like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
To give you a better, the person that's listening right now. But anyway, before we get too carried away into our childhood, let's step back. Let's go into the high school years, school years. How was it for you?
My high school years, it was pretty good. Of course, I was a diabetic at 9, so back in grade school. But when I got to high school, I would have blood sugars that would go sky high, and then they would drop. And it would do it a lot when I was sleeping, so I wouldn't even know. I had a neighborhood. My next door neighbor, we'd always play, like something. It's gonna sound crazy, but we'd even sit outside, out in the backyard or whatever, and act like we was playing school, sitting in school. And my sister was the teacher, and me and my neighbor was the students, and she was trying to teach us. Oh, how crazy is that, huh? But I can remember the one time when your blood sugar goes out of whack, like really high. Usually really high, because when it goes low, you usually just pass out. But it went super high, and man, I just started beating them both up. And he's a big kid. Back then we was little, but he was always so strong, big and strong. And he played college football and stuff. And I think he's done some powerlifting. Yeah, he's done a lot of powerlifting and stuff. And here I am beating them both up. My childhood, my high school years was they were rough at times.
Well, hold on. Actually, let's kind of go. Let's step back a little bit.
Okay.
So when did you find out about your diagnosis?
Back in 1984.
And how old were you?
I was 9. In 1984, I was 9. And as we was just talking, technology. Now you can go to the doctor and they can do a finger prick and tell you what your A1C test is, and that's like a 3-month test on what your blood sugar ranges over that 3 months. And so back in 1984, you'd go to the doctor's office and they would do a blood draw and send it. They would have to send it to Fisher-Titus, and that would take a day. And then by the time they did their labs and stuff, and back then might have been a day. So probably 3 days later, they're making a phone call back to the doctor, and I'll never forget. His name is Dr. Rittmeyer. He was in Waitman. Not sure where he's at now. And he called my mom and said, "Hey, where's Kevin?" And she said, "Well, he's at school." And my mom said, the doctor told my mom, and I can always remember that he said, "Go pick him up from school. Don't stop for nothing. Don't stop getting nothing to eat, nothing to drink. Don't stop for nothing. Get him to St. Joe's Hospital over in Lorraine." And actually now St. Joe's Hospital, they've got that all knocked down, so it's not even a hospital anymore. But that was back in 1984, and my blood sugar was a little over 1,600.
Wow.
And yeah, I said it right, 1,600, because it's that's just a number that is super. I should have been probably dead then. Should not have been at school walking and functioning. But when they got me to St. Joe's Hospital, it was actually down to, and I always remember, it was a little over 1,100 when they got me there, and that was in 1984. So I was taking there was back then was just shots. There wasn't no pumps or nothing like that. So I would have to carry around a needle and bottles of insulin because they didn't have. Now they even have like the things that are pre-filled, and you just dial on how much you need, and then just boom, and it's done. But back then, I'd have to draw it up, keep it cold. Like if I go to a friend's house, I'd have to keep the insulin cold. And it was I was on 2 different kinds. It was NPH, which was a long-lasting insulin, and a regular insulin is like a fast-acting. So when my sugar was, I had to check my blood sugars when I was little, and checking my blood sugars, if it was high, I'd have to take a shot of regular insulin to get it to come back down kind of faster, because the NPH is the long-lasting. It lasted for like the 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours, and then I would because I was taking shots at like 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night. So it was like so that's what that NPH would last that long. So I guess it'd be 12 hours. It was to last. But
So how was it like when you just be out playing? Did you have like a time schedule, you were saying, when you had to do your shot?
I did. So if I was out, now, the days are longer. So in the summer, when we're out of school, I'd have to run home at 7 o'clock to take a shot. And then, if we was playing football or basketball, I'd be like, oh, hey, guys, I'll be back. I got to run home. And everyone, all my friends, all the neighborhood kids, they all knew why. So I'd go home, I'd get a shot, get on my bicycle, and I'd go back to wherever we was playing, whoever yard we was playing in. So it was always fun.
Did the kids ever pick on you or tease you about it? Or?
No one's ever, none of them really didn't. They were all, believe it or not, because I know there's a lot of bullying now, but they were all my friends, and they, if they would catch me out, and see me acting skittish, being off, they'd say, "Hey, you all right?"
They're watching over you.
They were watching over me.
Good friends. Yeah.
Great, I've got a great neighborhood. Just amazing. My journey of growing up with the people that I've had in it, because, like I said, there's so much bullying now. People bully you for anything.
Yeah. Was there ever a time where you came across a big steer, or were you always just on schedule to get your shot?
I'm not going to say what year it was because I don't really remember, but, my brother, me and my brother had to share a room. I have 2 older brothers that are twins, and for some reason it was him and I, and we had to share a bedroom. My sister had her own room. My other brother had his room. Then me and my brother was sharing a room, and he came in one night, and he goes, he went and got my parents. He's like, man, there's something wrong with him. My blood sugar had dropped so low, and I don't know if it was that time or not, so I'm not really going to say if it was, but I've had it down, all of my blood sugar down into the low 30s, into the high 20s. And it should be between like 60 to 100 is like the range for your sugar range. And mine was all the way down into low 30s, high 20s. So, it'd be another trip. My dad, he would just, I can remember the one time they didn't even wait on the ambulance. They just threw me in the car and was,
like, we're going to get this checked out.
Got me to, out to Fisher Tires, out to the ER, and, but yeah, I've had lots of ambulance rides, from home to, Fisher Titus and things.
You pretty much became a regular.
I did. We'll get into that after a while.
So anyway, now we get back into high school. So you pretty much by the time you got in high school, you were a pro at it. You know how to do your shots and everything, or?
I did, but as a teenager, thinking we know it all, I don't need that. I can skip that shot. I don't need it. Hey, give me that Snickers bar. Give me a Reese's peanut butter cup, and not taking your shot. Your blood sugar is whoop. And I never have had a stressful life. But later on in my life, whenever it was stressful, my blood sugar would go even higher than eating a candy bar. Stress was horrible on my blood sugars.
So you were a little bit of a rebel, you were saying.
Well, everyone says I was trying to be. I thought I knew it all, I thought Kevin Rogers knows it all. Kevin Rogers if it can be done, Kevin Rogers don't need to do it. Mm-hmm. So I was, I guess I wish I wouldn't have been.
Did it limit you from playing any sports or doing any activities in high school? I played junior high football, and then I played basketball my sophomore year,
and then I got into racing. So I was always at a racetrack. My buddies or my one friend, he had a late model, and I would go to Attica every Friday night. We was at Attica, watching him and the sprint cars, and I was into motorcycles, racing motorcycles, dirt bikes, and then I got into racing go-karts, and so I didn't really play a lot of high school sports because I worked, and where I worked,
You were busy.
I was busy. I worked on some semis. I worked at Zyder's Trucking when I was in high school. I had some great friends there. The owners there. Steve and Mark, Carol and Dick. Of course, Dick has passed by now, but great family. But I worked there, and they actually back then they had the contract for the school buses. So the school bus was stuck down in Crestview, Ashland Crestview. And I was me and my friend Randy Spettle. We had to go down there and jump start it because it wouldn't start. So instead of riding on the bus to the sporting events, I went and had to get them started. So yeah, it was fun. Always working mechanical.
Now, how old were you at this time?
That was probably 17.
And you were the expert? You just knew how to do everything already?
Well, I thought I did.
I'm Kevin Rogers.
I'm Kevin Rogers. If it can be done, I can do it. But now, now that I'm older and wiser, I know that I have to step back and listen, because I'm still not too old to learn. I like to learn, but I have to step back because I don't know it, and that's for sure.
So, was there any challenges in high school that you had to face?
In high school, I really didn't. It was a few trips to the hospital for either high or low blood sugars and things like that. It was pretty good through high school. But the school is a pretty amazing because they would they would take me out of class before, like a period or two before lunch, and I'd go to the office, and I would sit there and I'd eat an apple or eat a bowl of applesauce to get me to lunch. So I always had help. It was just after high school is where things went south for me.
So how was your relationship with God at this time?
Didn't know him.
Non-existent?
My parents and I went to church at a church in Waitman. We were Baptist. Went to First Baptist Church in Waitman. When I was younger, that was really young, probably 12 years old, and then we kind of quit going. So I had lost all my. Didn't know him.
But it seems like from just what you're telling me, it just seems like he was already present in your life.
He has been. He has had me in the palm of his hand.
It just seems like from day one. I mean, just because I'm Kevin Rogers, he was telling you like, I'm still here though.
I've never left you, yeah. And he won't. He'll never leave or forsake us. And even at the young age, he has had me in the palm of his hand, and it's such a blessing. And now that I know that I'm Kevin Rogers and or K Raj. We had a guy that was coming here from Africa. He called me K Raj and
K Raj.
It's K Raj and coach in baseball. That's what they called me, was Coach K Raj, and that's why he would call me K Raj. And then now that I'm older, I need him every day, every step of my walk.
Amen.
Well, I need Jesus.
Amen.
That's for sure, because even when I didn't know him, he had his hand right here on my shoulder.
Now, what would your advice be to, because you said you had your little rebel stage. For Kevin Rogers, the advice to someone that else is also dealing with the same issues you were dealing with, and they're in high school right now, but they're feeling like, I'm so-and-so.
Yeah.
What do you want to say to that person right now?
I would like to tell them, listen to your doctors. Listen to your doctors. Listen to your parents, because your parents are older and wiser, and they will step you. And I pray that God has touched their parents to guide their child and to make sure you're always checking your feet. Always never miss a doctor's appointment. Get your eyes checked regularly, because I know what it does, and it's kind of like being in a microwave. It kind of cooks you from the inside out. It ruins your organs from the inside out, and we don't know it and we don't see it. So a lot of diabetics will have either a 3-6 month checkup. Don't miss them, and listen to what they say. Don't let it go in one ear and not the other, because what they're saying, they know what they're talking about.
Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah, it's always check your feet, and your outside extremities. Make sure that there's no sores. And if there is a sore, don't waste any time.
Yeah.
Get to a doctor, a wound center, a wound care, someone, because it can turn bad fast.
All right. Tell us a little bit more about your high school days that needs to be addressed, that needs to be talked about, that you want to cover.
My high school years, my high school years was pretty good. It was really after my high school years is where the story will get really interesting.
Your stories are interesting. Kevin Rogers.
Whoops! Look, there he is. K. Raj at jumping the gun and already moving ahead.
All right, so
high school. My mom always made sure that I went to the doctor. So and when I was not 16 and wasn't able to drive, she made sure I was there. And I guess back to high school years though, back to 16 driving, you always had to take even still, this year I didn't, and I was very fortunate, very blessed this year. But in the years prior, the last couple of years, they would make me take, even though that at 50, I was 49, 50, 49 and 50. I had to take a driving test just like I was 16 again, because of the diabetes and all the things that's happened in my life. So it's take care of yourself is what I want to really tell someone that's battling something.
Right now, they're just I could already hear somebody saying like they're thinking about giving it up. They're not liking the battle that's going on in their life, and they really need some solid advice.
And some solid advice is get out and talk with people. Don't stay in a room. Don't stay in the living room. Don't stay in your bedroom. In those four walls, they will close in on you. I've had it happening to me from time to time, and when I would feel it getting tighter on me, I would have to get out. And when you get out, God will release things and let you talk to the right people. And it really makes a lot of things better. You can't give up on yourself. You have to have the willpower and the power from God, and God will give you the power to get out. But you have to follow what He tells you.
Yep. In a way, that's what you're right on point. It's like, in those moments when we're by ourselves is the most crucial, because you get in your own head. And really in that moment, I would say is step out.
Chris, in that moment, the only thing that's in there is you and Satan.
Yep.
God's standing back there. God's there waiting for you to call upon His name. But all we want to listen to is the bad. I got this going on. I can't do this. I can't do this. And Satan's sitting there saying, well, I've got you. And he just keeps bringing you down.
Yeah.
God is staying right here in your right corner, telling you, call upon my name, and I will lead you through this, and He will.
But see, at that time, you didn't know who God was.
I didn't know who He was.
And maybe this person that's listening to you right now doesn't know who this is. Hasn't met God.
I'm praying and begging that if someone is watching this and they don't know Jesus, get to your knees and just talk to Him. Pray, talk to Him, get out and find a church. I've had friends, but not like my church friends. Yeah, your church friends are there through it all, right along with you.
All the battles.
My church family here at Mount Harvest is just amazing. And I was going to church. I went to church, prior to here, and my church family there was, they were amazing as well. Very great church. The church family. There's just nothing better than those kind of family and friends.
Explain to them how important it is to have church family, though. Because a lot of people feel like, especially nowadays, I know a lot of people that feel like they can do it on their own. They don't need the church. They read the Bible, and they read the Bible on their own. How important is it to have a church family?
Your church family, they've always got you lifted up. They're always praying for you, and I promise you that. I know your church family will be praying for you. If not, seek a church that is loving. But a church family, when you're hurting, they're hurting. And they will, it's very strange, but they know when something is going on. And I've had some battles going on, and I've had my church family here. Hey, you all right? Can I help you with anything? Is there anything you need help with? You want to talk? And just that talk just makes it so much better. It gets it off your chest, where you think you can handle it all yourself. You can't. Some things you can't. And that's why we're blessed to have a church.
I know. We're getting to preaching moments, and we got to get... We do this all the time, but we got to get... All right, let's get back to your story. We kind of drifted a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So after high school, it's all done. You graduated. What was next for you?
I was K-Raj.
K-Raj.
Know it all. I got out of high school. I got this job. It's called All American Tracks. It was out of South Amherst. Our shop was actually right next to Jamie's Flea Market. Traveled all over the United States, painting running tracks for track and field events. Did tennis courts, things like that. On the carpet and the chipped rubber and stuff like that they got now. Is great job, but K-Raj thought he knew it all. We was in New York, down in the Bronx, down in the Queens of New York. Kevin Rogers, I don't need my insulin. Hey, let's start drinking a little bit. I'm 18, 19 years old. Hey, the guys that I worked with were older. Yeah, we'll get it for you. All right, cool. Yeah, well, who needs to eat? I don't need to eat. Well, I'll drink this. It's poison.
Mm-hmm.
And they begged me to go to the hospital in New York. I was that sick. I think I might have missed 2.5 days of shots. I don't even remember now. I know I'd missed my morning shots, my night shots. I was working in the morning, then I'm drinking at night. But who needs insulin? It's overrated, right? So they begged me to, I was that sick. I thought I was dying. Felt like my heart was just ripping out of my chest. So they begged me to go to the hospital in New York, and I said, get me to Ohio. If we get to Ohio, I'll be all right. And I think I did that maybe so my parents would be able to come. even though I was in New York, my parents would have still been there. I don't know. I just wanted to make it to Ohio. And they got me to. There's a place in Pennsylvania, Medina, Pennsylvania. They got me to there, and I said, "You guys got to find a hospital." So they found a hospital. And they dropped me off, and they take off. They come back home. My parents. I think I woke up. I think it was 2 or 3 days later, and I saw my mom and dad and my cousin's husband was staying at the end of my bed. I didn't even know what to tell him. Besides, I was stupid.
Now, were you just trying at the time? Were you trying to fit in with the guys, or what was going on?
Yeah, just trying to fit in, just trying to be cool. Yeah, it wasn't being cool.
And you ended up drinking with the guys and missing your shots. And they were they trying to tell you to eat down? Were they?
I don't remember back then because them guys didn't know me. They wasn't. They were just work people. They wasn't friends. They didn't even know me. Other than I would tell them that I'd have to take a shot, and they're like, "Oh, okay, go
take a shot, man. Take a shot."
Do it. And then if I did, they were okay with it, and if I didn't, they didn't care. They were just there to make money and so
go on with their lives.
Yeah. So I got back, got out of the hospital from there, and got back, and I said I quit. So I quit there, and just got a job. Actually, right down the road here in Milan at the old Milan Steel. My brother got me a job there, so I worked with my brother. So he was able to always keep an eye on me, and even times there he'd say, "Hey, go to the break room, man. Get you an orange juice or something, because orange juice will always bring your blood sugars up." He's like, "Hey, go to the break room. You're all right. You're not gonna get in trouble. Just go get it and sit down. Take a minute. Take a little breather." So I would do that as well.
And then, so you're at the Milan Steel.
I was there. Yeah, I was there. I was there for probably three years maybe. And then I decided, it's all about making money, right?
You're Kevin Rogers.
I'm Kevin Rogers. It was about making money. Didn't know God. I'll go get a job. It's now gone, but it was in Norwalk, Janesville Products, 7 days a week. I don't know God. I don't need to be off on Sundays. So I can work.
Yeah.
So I was there for 16 years, and even there, people knew that I was a diabetic and things like that, and I had people watching out for me there. And then, but one night where I worked third shift, and she is now passed as well, but her name was Mary Castle. She was a quality control lady, and I was in an area that I was kind of worked back by myself. I fed hard trim into it was a big robot that I operated, but I was by myself. But we had racks, and they were stacked up. They were all empty. And she's walking through doing a quality check, and she comes through, and I'm laying in between them, sleeping like I'm passed out. My blood sugar had went so low that I was crawled in between those racks, and all it would have taken is a tow motor to come in to grab those racks and put a fork right through me. And that was even back then, not knowing Christ. And they got me out, and guess where I went? Fisher Titus. Another trip to Fisher Titus. So yeah, even working, I've had like my high school years working, I've had many trips to Fisher Titus.
Now, were you still drinking in that time period, or was it just a?
I was not. I was not drinking. I had quit, but I didn't know Christ. But I had quit. I met. Well, I didn't really meet because I had known her. She was my cousin's friend. Actually, it's gonna sound weird. Her mom and my cousin, my dad's cousin, somehow or another, they got married. So she had a daughter, and my cousin, they were like the same age. so I knew her, the girl that I ended up marrying. I knew her when we were little. That's how I had met her. And then, I'm gonna jump some years now. So, because I was like probably 93, probably 93. So now in
Great year.
1995, she had come up. They had come up from West Virginia, and then I fell in love and asked her to marry me, and then we got married. So and the whole time I was married, I was always faithful. I didn't drink, and I would work second shift a lot, second and third shift. Third shift, I'd come home, take a shower, I was ready for bed. My third shift's a hard shift, so I didn't go drinking or anything after work, and can't go drinking before work. And then second shift, I got a second shift maintenance job. So I was going to school like in the mornings, and then at Terra Tech over in Fremont, and then in the evenings, I was working until 11 o'clock at night. And if the third shift guys would call off, I was working until 3. But even after 11 o'clock, I wasn't going to a bar. I was going straight home, because not knowing Christ, but that's what I thought I was supposed to do. So we, that was gets us up to.
Well, at the time too, you're working thirds and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
If anybody knows working thirds, it's a crucial shift.
It's hard.
It's hard, just to have a normal life.
Yeah. And then being a diabetic is even. You have to take like your daytime stuff and I'll make it all at night. So I would eat dinner at 3 o'clock in the morning instead of 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was very, very, everything was switched around. But then if you would get a day off at Janesville, we didn't get many days off, but if you got a day off or a weekend off for maybe, prior to me being a maintenance guy, if the maintenance guys had to go in, shut it down for the weekend and do some work, I would be off for maybe a weekend. And now I'm trying to live my third shift life, but trying to do everything with, the family as well. Even my parents and, my wife at the time. So it's rough. Third shift's rough.
And then talk about that a little bit. So how old are you at this time period?
I am probably 23.
23, and
Yeah,
you're married
20.
already?
I did. I got married in 97. So how old am I in 97? Or in 97 is 23, I think.
23. And so how was the adjustment to just being married now? Working thirds, going to school.
That was tough because, I'm newlywed. I want to spend time, with my wife, at the time, and that's why. So that adjustment was tough, getting married, and so yeah, that was a rocky road as well.
Let's dig into it. Let's pull back the layers.
Let's dig into it. So yeah, so we got married, in 97, and in 2000, I had a few bumps in the road with blood sugar along the way, and I said 2000, but it was in 1999. I ended up getting an insulin pump. So I was always connected to a tube. It was about the size of back in the day when we had the pagers.
Yep.
It was about that size, and had a tube, and I had it went into my stomach. So it was always giving me insulin instead of taking shots. So I'm not taking shots now. I've just got insulin going into my stomach all the time, 24/7. And so I did better. I was doing better, a lot better I did better with that, I thought. When I was eating right, and when I was married, not drinking, because I'm still not drinking at this time. I'm still alcohol free. I'm married. It's my my family now. So what do I need to drink for?
Yeah, you're living.
I don't need to fit in with no one because at the time I had a wife, and in 2000 I had my first son, Stone. So July 1st of 2000, Stone was born. And I thought everything was going great, going well. We were raising him, and then in 2004, January 2004, I got another son. I got a son named Logan. So January 28th of 04. Now I've got 2 boys, and it's not that I'm bad mouthing anyone. She had decided to find someone she worked with and rather spend more time with him. And is it because I was working, because I was working 7 days a week now, and 8 to 12 hours a day, so not knowing Christ, we didn't have God in our life. So did she need to find someone? Is it because and back then I was still into racing motorcycles like I was in high school. Motorcycles and go-karts. I got into racing go-karts with along the way, I've been racing go-karts as well, and can be expensive. So I spent a lot of money, and but I thought that all of our bills were always being paid. But she had found someone that fulfilled her heart more than me, and so in 2005, we got a divorce. Well, instead of turning to the Bible, instead of asking for God, I started cracking bottles, beer bottles.
Because you had that void in your heart now, that hole.
Yeah. So.
And then more, the question: what did I do wrong? What did I miss out on?
And it's funny because I've asked her. Even back then, we don't really. We talk here and there, not but we don't have conversations like that. But back then, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? No, I just didn't. I just fell out of love. And okay, I guess that's didn't know how to live with it. So I was working second shift, and it worked great for me because as my kids got a little bit older, I could see them in the morning before school, and I didn't get to see them at night. But I got to see him before school, and then I get off work, and they would be with her at night. I would go to the bar. So every night after work, I'm drinking again, like I was back when I was painting tracks. So I turned back to the bottle instead of doing what I should have done. So that'll bring us up to well, we'll bring it up to 2009. 2009, I got a DUI. Not happy. But then again, God had me in the palm of His hand. I'll make you pay money, but you didn't hurt yourself. You didn't kill yourself. But more importantly, you never hurt or killed a mother or father going home to see their family. I'll make you pay money. And now I'm so blessed. Not proud of it by no means, but I'm so thankful that I didn't wreck and hurt myself or someone else. And that's at 2009, and I'm still hurting. I'm still angry, I guess. I think I was angry because I don't know what I did. Don't have my family anymore. It's just me. I'm back to K-Raj. Do what I want. I can't be. Nothing's gonna hurt me. Nothing's gonna stop me. Well, it brings us to 2011. Well, I get another DUI. And then again, it's just a DUI. I didn't hurt myself, didn't kill myself, nor someone else. I was going home to see their family. And now I look back at it. What if I would have hit someone, a mom going home, and their son or daughter would have never been able to see them again, just from being stupid. One night of stupidity, of thinking that this is who I am, I can't be stopped.
Yep.
I'm very blessed. So that brings us to May. I don't remember the month that I got my DUI. Um, so, but I do know it was in May. End of May, beginning of June of 2011. Both my boys are playing soccer, and so now I'm back. I'm on third shift now because there was an opening, and I got to go to third. So that way I can see my kids in the morning, and I can see them at night. While they're at school, I can sleep, and then at night, I go to work, and then in the morning I can see them a little bit before school, and then while they're at school, I can sleep. But it was a Saturday morning. Don't remember the day, but I know it was 2011, May or June, because they had just gotten out of school for the summer break. And I live around the corner from the Collins Church, and they got a big field over there. And at the time, back then, I think they had 3 different soccer fields. So they had a youth soccer league there, and it was huge. And my mom and dad, they bought this Kawasaki mule, which is like a 4-wheeler with a little dump bed on it. And, I've got a DUI, but, I'm Kevin Rogers that lives in Collins. I can ride it on the road. So I had probably, I think, I tried to figure out all the kids before, and I think I had about 8 to 10 kids in the bed of this little 4-wheeler, this mule. And I take them all the way to the corner store, which is on the other side of 20. We go there, and I buy them all Gatorade and waters, whatever they wanted to drink for soccer, and we turn around, we come back up Hartman Center, and we pull into the church, and I'm there for, probably 2-3 hours. By the time one boy played soccer, by the time Stone played soccer, and then Logan played soccer, and my dad had mom and dad had a golf cart as well. So on the way home, it was my dad, my nephew Cy, and Stone was my oldest son was on the golf cart, and they was in front of us. It's just hop, skip, and a jump. Not even a mile from my house. And I'm driving the mule, and Logan's on the back. It's just him and I. And I know myself back when I was young, that age. I was always, my brothers and a sister and my cousins, Penny and Pam. They all would try to sit on the tailgate and drag their feet on the ground. Going because we baled hay and things like that back then. And we'd always try to drag our feet on the ground. And I don't know if that's what he had tried to do, but he fell off. And so I stopped. I just cut off Hartman Center onto our road, and it's just a little, maybe a little bump or something. I don't know what happened. I stopped and I checking. I asked him what was hurting, and he told me his back, and he had a spot maybe the size of a quarter on his back, like a road rash. And I said, anything else hurting? Anything else? Anything else hit the road? No, I'm good. I'm all right. So I get him back on the mule. I make him sit up on the seat, and we get him home. And I put some Neosporin on it. It didn't last because I think he jumped in the pool and went swimming. So it didn't hurt him that I knew of at the time very bad. And so then, so that was Saturday morning. Saturday night, my niece, Chelsea, had just graduated high school. So we went there, they had her graduation party. And, he was there, and he was running and eating. And then, it was hot that day. So there was my cousin, Pam, her daughter, I believe is who, I know it's her daughter, got sick, belly issues going on because of some food. I don't know if there's something got warm, don't know. But I said Logan it didn't bother Logan. And I'll get to that, why I said that in a second. So that night we ended up going to the drive-in. Went and got pizza from Pizza Post and went out there, we sat there. Out front, they got the grass area. He's out there playing with friends. I remember him playing football and things like that. Comes back, and we're sitting there watching. We watch a movie, watch them both. So by the time you get out there, it's 1 o'clock, I think, after both movies are played. And we get home, and he's still good. So Sunday, still not knowing Christ. We had a doubleheader baseball game. At down at the school. So, I've got him, I was the coach. Pitching, he was playing first base, he was my catcher, and center field is the spots that he played. So I know that we had rotated him. And at the time, I had staph infection in my right leg. And I get home and, he's still okay. Nothing's ever said about him, about his back or anything else. So we get home and, I'm cooking dinner and I had to go get some antibiotics because my leg had swelled up and was had some stuff coming out and out of the incision that was there, the scratches and stuff. So I'm out at the hospital. My mom calls me. She said, "Hey, Logan's throwing up." I said, "Okay, give him some Pepto-Bismol." She goes, "Well, I did, and he can't keep that down." I was like, "All right." I said, "Well, bring him out here to the hospital, and we'll have him looked at. Is it food poisoning? I don't know. Was it heat stroke?" But all along, he played baseball. But he swam. But and back then he had a motorcycle. And he's riding his motorcycle and jumping on a trampoline, doing things that a little 7-year-old boy was going to do. And so she brought him out, and I asked the nurse. I said, "Hey, my mom's bringing my son out. Can him and I be in the same room?" She said, "No, he'll have a different doctor." So my mom stayed in the room with him, and he got released before me, and they determined that it was just from the heat. And but he had a popsicle and kept it down for like an hour or whatever, before then they released him. But they said, just make a follow-up appointment with your family doctor. So this is Sunday. So Sunday night, actually, it's after midnight, so we're going into Monday morning. And I said, all right. So when I got home, I don't know what time I got home. It was early hours in the morning. And then at 9 o'clock, I'm getting up and making him breakfast, and I called the doctor's office. And they said, well, we can get him in. And the time was between like 2 or 2:30. I don't know. I know it was in the afternoon. I said, okay, that's fine. I said, because he just ate breakfast. I said, he's outside jumping on a trampoline right now as I'm watching him. And she said, all right. I said, but I just like to have him looked at because that's what they told me. He just needs a follow-up. So I took him, or he came up for lunch. So now we're at like noon, and we're in the kitchen. We're talking, and he walks over and gets in the living room, and he holds onto the couch. He said, "Dad, it's happening again. The room is spinning." I'm like, all right. I said, let me call him back. Let me see if I can get you in now. So I called, and they said, no, we just can't do it. And I said, well, just cancel his appointment. I said, because I'm just going to take him back out to the ER. I need to know what's going on. So I take him out there, and, I felt like they were blaming me. So now we're 3 days later, that they were blaming me because he had this accident. But no one, I told them about the accident. But they asked me if they could do a CAT scan on his head. You do what you need to do because I'm not a doctor. Now I'm starting to realize a little bit that even though I'm K-Raj, I don't know it all at this time. I don't know what's going on, but I need to know. I need my son fixed. So they did a CAT scan, MRI, whatever on his head, and came back and he said, "Mr. Rogers, we need to have him life flighted." They gave me like 3 different hospitals. I don't remember which ones it was, but I've always heard great things about Akron Children's Hospital. I said, let's fly him there. Let's get him there to get the care that he needs. He said he's got some bleeding on the back of his brain. I said, really? So I said, all right, let's get him. He said the helicopter's on its way. I said, well, can I go with him in the helicopter? And so I got to go in the helicopter with him to Akron. We get to Akron. I called my ex-wife because we're divorced. And, I called my ex-wife and told her what had happened. And she comes. He had to go in for surgery, and then still not knowing Christ, but he still got me in the palm of his hand. The doctors had, and the whole nurse, the hospital staff said, one parent can stay there all night. One can, but just one and one only. And I made the agreement with my ex-wife. I said, hey, you stay tonight because I got an appointment in the morning for some IV antibiotics. I had a PICC line in, and the nurse was coming to give me the antibiotics through the PICC line at home. I said, after that, I said, as soon as they get done with that, I said, I'll be in the car heading back down here. So she stayed the first night. The second night, I told her I was staying, kind of get into a little fiasco because she wasn't leaving and I wasn't leaving. She's remarried already by this time, and her husband, he's blaming me of my Stone is sitting there on, they brought a laptop and things because they do office work stuff, and so Stone gets on their laptop and he's like looking up what would happen for are you allowed to drive these on the road? Are you jumps for? I didn't jump. I was going off of Heartland Center onto our road, which is just a turn. And so all Stone's looking up. He's like, well, why are you guys looking for jumps on mules? For these ATVs and things like that. And so he gets I thank God and I give God all the glory because he came through that surgery. Got to come home. He was in there for like a week and a half and got to come home. Got home and she decided she would take the power into her own hands and not let me have visitation. She took my visitation away. So I know what time she works. I know who had my boys. So I get my custody papers out. And, at this time, I can't drive and I know what's going to happen. B&K Raj, I know it's not going to turn out right. So I take my papers with me. And my dad takes me over to get my boys because I knew they were at, her mom's house. And so I knocked on the door and they opened it. Well, I thought it was a door of welcoming. I walk in. I get my boys, and before I get them in the car, there was some arguing going on between the two of us, the grandma and I. So she's got her daughter on the phone. Cops get called, and I knew the cops were going to call. That's why I had my visitation papers. And they got so they was ended up getting for they was all in together, but so. They were getting me for breaking and entering. And then along the way, my ex-wife had filed charges against me. There was 5 different ones of breaking and entering. I didn't break and entering because I knocked on the door yet. She opened the door. Grandma opened the door. Stone and Logan didn't open the door. Grandma opened the door. I just walked in. So I got, breaking and entering. It was trying to get me for attempted murder of my son, child endangering, driving a non-off-road vehicle on the road, and they were trying to get me for like a compliance, I think is what the other one was, for not telling them at the ER the first time that he had hit his head. Didn't know he hit his head. Had no clue that he hit his head. So all summer long, she takes my visitation away. I didn't even get to see my boys all summer long. And of course, I'm drinking because I've got so much anger in me. And then, so in August of 2011, I ended up getting an attorney, and he got, in private investigators, he had marked everything out, how it, coming off Heartland Center, he had focused, they had investigated. I had, the attorneys that I had were amazing. So I got arrested. After I walked out of court, I walked past all the bailiffs and everything, my attorney told me, he said, listen, in the morning, you have to go turn yourself in, and you have to pay, you get a bond, you pay the bond, and they'll release you. You'll be out there in 2 or 3 hours. And that was a Friday. I got arrested on Thursday, and then or my court hearing was on Thursday. So on Friday morning, got my visitation back, so she had to drop them off. But my attorney said after you get them and you see them, spend a little bit of time with them, then go turn yourself in, and then you'll be back, in 2 or 3 hours. I said, all right. Well, here I am, still so angry. So I can even tell you the time frame because Wheel of Fortune. I was watching Wheel of Fortune, and that's like between 7 and 7:30. I get a knock on my door. It's Huron County Sheriff. I said, hey, what are you doing? And I'm so angry still. I'm sitting in my house, my own house, drinking. And I said, yeah, what are you going on? What's going on? I said, what do you need? He goes, well, I'm here to arrest you. He goes, I got to come in. I said, well, you're not coming in my house. You don't need to come in my house. I said, I'll come out there. You can arrest me out there. Back to jail I go. And then, so my mom and dad, I'm so blessed, for my mom and dad. They they had to put their house up for collateral because now I'm considered a felon for the attempted murder charges, child endangering charges is all felonies. So now I'm considered a felon. So my mom and dad had to put their house up, stating that I wouldn't run and things like that. So I get out of jail and I get my boys, I get my kids, and it was a Friday evening. Stone's birthday is July 1st. He said, Dad, he goes, we've got a pool, and he goes, Dad, I missed my pool. I didn't have my friends over for my birthday. He said, can we have a party? I said, sure can. So here I am, not prepared for a party. I said, well, you bring them over, you can swim, sit in a hot tub. I'll go get stuff, we'll build a fire, we'll have s'mores, hot dogs, things like that over the fire. I said, but I got to run to the store. I said, I got to get, the Hershey's bars and the marshmallows. I said, I'll be right back. I said, you guys are not allowed in the pool. Don't get in the pool while I'm gone. I said, you're more than welcome to sit in the hot tub. What can happen in a hot tub, right? So I built my house above my mom and dad's garage. So, I got to run upstairs, grab my wallet. And I don't even make it back downstairs, and here comes Stone yelling and crying, Dad! Holding his mouth. He fell in the hot tub and broke his tooth. Unfortunately, I had to take him to the hospital for a broken tooth, so they didn't say that I was neglecting my child, endangering my child, neglecting from taking him to the hospital and things like that. So here I am taking, my son to the hospital for a broken tooth. So then, that was in 2011, but I got him back, so we're fighting things out in court for, all these charges that I've got. And, I won. I won in the court of the law. They had dropped the attempted murder charges. That's not even on my file. It's not even on my records. Child endangering, it's not on my records. It's what she was trying to get me for, but I was never charged with them, so it's never stuck. So that brings me into 2014. I'm still drinking all the way up until 2014.
Because you got that hole in your heart.
Still not knowing God.
Yeah. You're trying to fill that void.
Trying to fill something. 2014, went to a revival down in Akron. My cousin had a church down there, little tiny church, went to a revival. My aunt and uncle from West Virginia came up. My mom and dad was there. I don't remember if there was anyone else from my brothers or sisters. Probably not. I don't think so, not that one. I had something fill that hole in my heart. It was something that this is what I was missing. Talking to God, praying. So then you know, we were down in Akron at the time. We'd come home. You know, we'd come home. Then you know, I had started going to church down in Shelby. Not regular. I'm working into it, I guess. And then in 2015, you know, I started going regular. You know, never joined the church, but I was going. You know, I would go every week. Me and my mom and dad. 2016, I lost my kidneys. So you know, quit drinking in 2014. 2016, I've lost my kidneys. So now I'm on dialysis. And you know, the church down there had lots of prayer for me. And I know if I was here, they'd be praying for me as well. And then, so you know, so now I'm can't work because on top of not being a good diabetic, I'm not a good dialysis patient either. I was only allowed to drink 8 ounces of water for like 3 days. Because my dialysis days was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Friday to Monday, those 3 days, 8 ounces of water. So K-Rod's kicking in. I'll go to McDonald's across the street and get a large orange juice or a large Diet Coke, and now I could have a drink between the McDonald's out by across from the hospital over to the dialysis center over by the hospital. I said, I'm like, well, you know, they're taking it all out and gonna clean it anyhow. My blood out and clean it anyhow, right? It doesn't work that way. So, so I wasn't a good dialysis patient, but I was just always so thirsty for Diet Coke or orange juice, either or. I drink it all. And so, you know, I'm going to church. You know, we would be going to church. You know, my dad was always drive, and I can remember numerous times of going and being so sick, we'd have to turn around and bring me home because I'd be so sick. So, you know, lots of prayer. So I'm on dialysis from 2016 to 2018. And still lots of prayer, lots of believing. I forgot about 2016. 2016 is when I first died. I died at home in 2016. So that I had died at home. They brought me back. You know, they shocked me the first time, couldn't get nothing. Shocked me the second time, couldn't get me. Third time they had shocked me because, you know, after the second time they told my dad. They said, you know, my mom was at work and my dad was like, can you just please do it one more time? They're like, well, if we don't get nothing in 2, we're not going to get nothing the third time. Yes, you're not going to hurt him. So they did. They got the pulse came back. Then the heart, shortly after that, had kicked in and started working.
But hold on. Explain actually how that happened. How did you die?
It was a dialysis day. So after dialysis, I was always so drained, so just wore out. So probably didn't eat. I don't really remember if I ate or not that day, but probably not. And I have the insulin pump, still giving me insulin. So my blood sugar's dropping. No, and being weak, I was sitting in my chair and didn't have enough energy to go get something to eat. And my son was going to Ehovie, and he played baseball for Western Reserve. And I would go to Ehovie and pick him up because he didn't drive. Well, I didn't show up, and he had a game that day, and I didn't show up to pick him up to get him to baseball to the school. So he calls my dad. My dad was working over at Burnham's Apple Orchard over in Berwyn Heights. Great friends with the Burnhams, amazing people. He just tells me I gotta go check my son. So my dad comes home, and when he comes there, I guess I'm all hunched over. I'm not breathing. I was just bent over, is what I've been told. And then my neighbor, Laura Rowe, she 2 houses down. They always kind of kept an eye on me as well. She comes over because my dad's yelling for help and things like that. And at the time, my dad's lungs was weak. But he was, my dad was amazing. So they got 911 called and got me going back. So now that I've got this all jibber jabbered, my let me get you back up to 20.
So they get you back. You're back alive after you get the third time.
Yeah.
Thanks to your dad, he said, "Do it one more time."
Do it one more time.
And that's all it took.
That's what it took. Just do it.
And
one
if you
more
think
time.
about it, what is 3? What is that? What's that mean?
That's the third day. That's when the tomb opened.
That's a magical number.
That's when the tomb opened.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
And that's and
The third day, he rose.
yeah, and that's what it was.
Like we said before, God was there every step.
He never
left.
He never left. No matter what K. Raj said, no matter what K. Raj did, God was there. Never left me.
He's like, okay, Raj.
So now that we got all the story up to 2018. So in September of 18, well, I guess prior I was going through these steps to try to get on a transplant list. Maybe a kidney, a pancreas transplant. When I was talking to the transplant team, they said, if you get a double transplant, a double organ transplant, you tend to get it maybe a little faster. A single organ transplant, they told me it could be 5 to 7 year wait. They said even with a double organ transplant, it could be a 3 to 5 year wait. It's still a wait. They said, but if you go for a double transplant, so I went for a kidney and a pancreas. So I went for them both, and God's still in the picture. And now I'm a believer. I've seen God's work, and I can feel God every day at this point in my life. And so in September of 18, after I went through all this testing to try to get on the list, I'm at the point now in my life where I'm in such bad shape. Fisher-titis couldn't help me. Anything I did, Fisher-titis wasn't big enough to help me. So I had to go to the Cleveland Clinic, and they're amazing. The Cleveland Clinic is, they're just top notch. And I worked with a guy that said, you need to go to, this is years ago, go to the Cleveland Clinic. I'm like, no, I ain't going up there. I said, I've heard bad things about the Cleveland Clinic, bad bedside manners. I don't want to go up there and be treated bad. Listen, I've been there. I've never had bad bedside manners. The ladies, the guys that clean my room, the food servers, the nurses, the doctors, the people that do the checks on you for insurance and stuff, have always treated me, and I'm sure they treat everyone the same, have always treated me so well. It's just an amazing place, the technology that they've got. So I'm in the dialysis center up there in September, still not on the transplant list, and still praying. Still got lots of prayers going out to at least get on the list. That way we've got eyesight at the end of the tunnel. We can see what would be coming. So I'm in dialysis up there in September, early September, and I had died there. So they had put the patches on me. They told me, they said, hey, we got to put these patches on you. I can remember that. I can remember bits and pieces of it. I remember them telling me that they had to put those pads on me, and I can remember telling me that he was going to have a meeting with, he's going to have a team of doctors come in. And I said, that's fine. I said, has anyone called let my boys know, Stone and Logan know? Has anyone called my mom and dad? They said they're all on their way. And I remember them saying they was on their way. And I can remember when they said that he's going to bring a team of doctors in to talk to me. And I promise, they were at least 3 deep all the way around my bed, doctors. Maybe practitioners, nurses. I don't know who all was around for this meeting, but I can all the way around my bed. So I'm saying 45, 50 people at least. And that's a low number of people that I had seen, standing there. And that's the last thing I remember. I woke up 11 days later. Unfortunately, they gave me fentanyl through my IV to, I guess, I don't know I'm not sure what they did it for, but So 11 days later, I wake up in ICU. God has brought me back through again. And, so I get better and things, and I get to come home. And I open my mail. I got something from the Cleveland Clinic. Wow, another bill, right? That's that's what we were going to think. I opened up to see how much I owe them now. I get a letter that says you've been awarded to be on the transplant list. So in September of 2018, I get on the transplant list. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I'm thanking him because now I know it's either somewhere between 3 to 7 year wait. And I know there's a lot of people getting these organs, kidneys. So I'm still, going through my dialysis and things like that. Living the best that I can. Living for God. Always so sick. And I think I know it was early November, a week or two before the 18th of November. I think it was like 2 weeks. I get a call late at night. Well, to me, now that we're old, 8 o'clock's late, right? So at 8 o'clock, probably 8 o'clock at night, I get a call from the Cleveland Clinic and said, asked me what I was going to be doing the next day. I said, I've got nothing going on the next day. They said, well, don't eat nothing or drink nothing after midnight because we may have a kidney and pancreas for you. I'm calling everyone. I'm so blessed. I'm waiting, 3 to 7 years for to go in for some organs, and I'm a month and a half away from receiving the letter to getting this call. Well, so I'm calling all my family, my friends, and they called me that day. They said, nah, it's not a good match. I'm bummed. Well, now how long do I gotta wait? But I got the call, so I'm excited because I at least got the call.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. So that brings us up to November 17th of 2018. They called me, and that was a Saturday. I'll never forget the days. That was a Saturday, November 17th of 2018. If you look it up as a Saturday, they called me and asked me what I was going to be doing the next day. On Sunday, I said, well, I would be going to church. I said, but unfortunately, our dialysis center is backing their days up because of Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So instead of going on Monday, this week I got to go on Sunday. And as I said, I was a bad dialysis patient. So from going from 4 hours a day, now I'm at 4.5 hours a day. So then they said, all right, well, asked me if I was able to have my phone with me. I said, yeah, I'll have my phone with me. They said, well, expect a phone call. We'll let you know whether to come or not. I said, all right. And I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning for my dialysis. And 9 o'clock, 9:15, because I think I was out of there by 9:30. Cleveland Clinic calls. And they said, hey, asked me where I was at, and I told them. I said, well, I'm in dialysis. They said, well, get a hold of your nurse. Tell her to unhook you. Come to the Cleveland Clinic. Today's the day you're having a transplant. We got a kidney and pancreas for you. And so I yelled for the nurse's name was Kim. I'm yelling. In the dialysis center, it's super quiet. All you hear is machines running, pumping. People's not talking. Mm-hmm. And you hear me screaming, yelling for Kim. Kim! And she comes running. She's like, what's going on? I said, here. And I'm bawling my eyes out, from the joy of what God has done for me, what He's doing for me. I said, here's the Cleveland Clinic. They want to talk to you. So she's talking to him, and then, they told her, unhook me, because I was coming up there. And then she starts crying, and, we're all so excited. So, I might get out of there. I'm calling my mom and dad. I'm like, hey, I know you guys if you're getting ready for church. I said, we're going to the Cleveland Clinic. I had to be there by was by 2. Is when I had to be there by. I think I was there by 1. So we're on the way, and we're calling everyone on the way. All my family and my friends, and I get there. And, the doctor, his name is Dr. Wee, and he was going through some hard times himself. His brother over in the Philippines, his twin brother, had got murdered, and he was sharing that story with us. As and I'm like, man, oh man, this guy's he's going through a hard time as well. Do I want him to do this surgery? But my family was there, got to be in the the room with me before the surgery and stuff. And I think it was, if I'm thinking right, it's 8 or 9 hour surgery. And I came out, and man, the kidney's been doing great. The pancreas is doing great. So that brings me to no longer being a diabetic. No more taking shots. No more insulin pumps. No more dialysis. Living life like a regular person would. That's healthy. And so that was in 2018. And they sent me home, and they said, "We're gonna send you home with this pain medicine." I said, "I don't need it. I don't want it." They're like, "Well, yeah, you're gonna need it. They had cut me from up here all the way down into the growing area. So they had me wide open. I'm like, I don't need it. I had God, and He had brought me through. So I didn't have to use any of it. I'm that blessed." So that was so my dad. He got to see me do things as a normal, healthy person, but his health was getting worse. He had a lung disease as well from working with asbestos and stuff like that. So September of 19, I lost my dad, but he got to see me do things. So my dad, I see my dad every day because, I built a house above their garage in their backyard. So I'd come down my steps. I always see my mom and dad, So my dad was like my best friend. The people I knew when I was drinking, I started going to church. It was no longer my friends. Mm-hmm. And, I'll never forget, I had a phone call when I got home from a friend. Said, "Hey, let's go celebrate." Absolutely, let's go. Let's go celebrate. Where would you like to go? He said, "Well, we'll go have a beer." Not for me. I said, "Not for me." I said, you want to go to a bar? We can go have water. I'll have water with you. Because at the time I was drinking lots of water. Gotta keep this I'll do what I gotta do to keep this new kidney hydrated and water. I have water with you. We'll get wings. Whatever you want to do. Ain't putting it in my body. Well, that's not really celebrating, is it? You better believe it's celebrating. We'll talk about God. We'll talk about what He has just done. And it's still to this day. I still pray for the family, a lady, because I got my organs is from a lady. Have not met the family yet. I pray someday I can. But I got the organs from a lady, and I told you'll never see me put poison in my body. And that's what alcohol to me is. It's nothing but poison. Not doing it. If you want to go celebrate, have water with me, let's go. We'll talk about God, what He's done, what He's brought me through, what He has brought. And I back to praying for that family, because they had to lose someone. They had to lose someone. For God to keep me living here for a reason. I've got a reason. I've got a purpose out here on earth.
But they lived through you?
They lived through me. And I will not do anything to hurt her. If I hurt her, I hurt myself and I hurt her family. Not doing it. I want her to live as long as I can keep it alive. But my dad had got to see me healthy and got to see me do things. But like I said, in September of 2019. He got to see Stone graduate, and my nephew Derek graduate. They graduated in 19, so he got to see that. And, that was a big blessing. I wish he could have seen Logan graduate. That would have been the last of his grandkids to graduate, but he didn't. And he's watching above. I know that. So then in 2020, I get a phone call. I don't remember, not this one. I don't remember the month. I think it was spring, summer. It was warm out. So I get a phone call from the Cleveland Clinic because I'm doing blood work all the time, once a month. And still to this day, once a month, beginning of the month, I go do blood work so they can keep it I want whatever I got to do to protect it, these organs, and anything else that's going on in my body. So in 2020, Cleveland Clinic calls me and they said, "Hey, we need you to come up here. You're already pre-registered. Go into the door, the registration. They've got all your paperwork." I'm like, "What's going on? You don't want to tell me what's going on?" They said, "Well, we found some things and we need to do some testing." And so I said, "Was it very, very important that I come?" He said, "It's very important that you come." I said, "Do I got that? Because this is a Sunday. Do I got time to go to church? Do I got time to go to church?" And he goes, "Well, what time's church over?" I said, "Well, probably 1, maybe 1 o'clock to be on the safe side." I said, "I can come. I can pack up, get my stuff and bring with me, everything I need to be admitted. My clothes, razor." So after church, my mom, she takes me to the Cleveland Clinic, and they found out that I had a lung disease, and it's called cryptococcus fungus, which attacks only 2 things: your lungs and your brain. If it gets in your brain, they said you had a maximum of 3 days to live. Wow. So they found this out, and it can be called, what caused this? What happened? And there's no rhyme or reason why. It could have been from maybe birds. Could have been from dirt, dust. He said grass. He said, there's so many multiple things that could have caused this. He said, if it was like a scab, and you could just pick it off on your lung, we can't get in there to just pick it off and knock it off. So it stays on there and grows. They got me on it's actually a cancer pill. I've been on since 2020. And I'm still on it to this day. And every time I go get looked at, it's not growing; it's staying the same. So God's got it. He's got it under control. So He's still with me. So that brings me up to 2021 of my life. I ended up with an infection on the side of my foot. So on my right foot, even though I'm not a diabetic. It's called a diabetic ulcer. So it's still a sore that wouldn't heal, just keeps getting deeper and deeper in. So they amputated the side of my foot, my little toe. And, they sent me home, guys in there for maybe 3 days. Sent me home and, I go up, I live upstairs because my house is above the garage. So I go home and my nephew had these dogs. And while I'm sitting in the hospital, I'm seeing what he's got. Because he's selling these dogs. I'm like, a golden doodle. I said, I'd like to have that. There's a black golden doodle. She's beautiful. She's been there through, from 2020 on to 2021, still with me to this day. And she's just a miracle to me as well. And so I was letting her out, and I have flip-flops on. Why? Who knows? But I guess because I don't know why.
He's comfy.
Because they're comfy. Slip them on and go. And I opened the kitchen door and hit my big toe on the corner of the door. I'm right there at the trash can. It split the nail, so I just tear it off and throw it in the trash can. And I go on. Don't think nothing of it, So I was going to the wound center to have my right foot looked at. They would change dressings and things like that. Well, I asked him, I said, hey, told him what had happened. I hit my toe on the door. I said, can you look at my left big toe? I told him I hit it on the door. She goes, oh yeah. She goes, it's fine. Keep it wrapped and betadine on it. I'm like, all right. So, and I'm going back every week. And the next week I go back. And now in my days, I'm K-Raj, but I don't know. Listen, now I know nothing. But I do know that it was hurting and not looking as good. And I show it to her. I unwrap it, because I had gauze around. So I unravel the gauze, and I show her that, the betadine's on it. She goes, oh, that's looking great. I'm like, no. I said, that thing is so painful. I said, it's throbbing, it's hurting. She goes, oh, you'll be all right. She goes, it's healing. Okay. I'm like, ouch, this hurts. And she goes, I'm not going to see you next week. I'll see you the week after. So I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay. She says, you can wrap your own feet now and take care of everything yourself. Okay. So, I go home and, the Wednesday comes, because I was going every Wednesday. Wednesday comes and I look down, I'm changing the dressing. I look at my left foot because it's killing me. If I would have taken a pain pill, I'd probably been one of them at that time, because I was in that much pain. I've got green pus coming out of my toe. It's killing me, and so I call him. I said, "Hey, can she see me?" I said, "This is what's going on. I got green. Is it gangrene? I don't know what I've got, but it's green, slimy pus coming out of my toe." They said, "Nope." She said, "You either got to go to urgent care, let them look at it, or call your family doctor." I said, "Okay." So I call, I call my doctor, my family doctor, and I go down there and I see a nurse practitioner. She's amazing. She is just as good or better than any doctor. Nurse practitioner Amanda Horn, and she looks at it. She goes, shakes her head. She goes, "Gavin, go out to Fisher Titus, have them do an X-ray, and then I'm going to call and have it faxed to the Cleveland Clinic." She said, "Because I know that's where you're going to go." I said, "Yeah, if I got to go anywhere, that's where I'm going." And so I go up to the Cleveland Clinic. I go. They amputated the first time half my toe. They thought they got it. So I wasn't in there very long, a couple of days. Come home, and I had a home health nurse come out. They would have to stick the long Q-tip looking like things up in there and pull all this stuff out. Mm-hmm. And then my mom was able to, she would watch, and she was able to do it. She would come up to my house and she would do it for me, and so he didn't have to come out every day because I had to do it every day. But it started getting a little gross again. So they, I called them, and they went in and they amputated the whole toe. So now, my foot is the whole foot with kind of like the second toe, and the rest of it was cut off. That whole corn was cut off. And I was like, is this, is this what's gonna help? Is this the end of it? And they're like, maybe, but before they would take me down, I would be laying there before they would, knock you out with the anesthesia stuff, and I would pray, and I could just feel the presence of God by me through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was in there for a couple of days for that, and came home, and that got infected as well. So there's one to take half my foot, and I said, "Is that going to be the final step?" I've had all these amputations now. I said, "Is that the final amputation?" And they said, "Your final amputation will probably be more than likely below the knee. If we have to go that far, we will." I said, "Well, let's just do it so I can get on with my life."
Yeah.
So they decided to do it. So November 16th of 2021, COVID time. You can't have no one in the hospital. And so November 16th, I had my transplant November 18th of 2018. November 16th of 2018, 2021, I'm getting my leg cut off, amputated, and that was my mom's birthday. So and with the presence of God, I was able to have. We've got a God that laughs and jokes, and we've got a loving God that likes to laugh. He doesn't want everything always so serious. So I felt, I was asking the doctors, I said, hey, can I have that for keep it, my leg for, give it to my mom for her birthday? We'll make like a leg lamp, and my brothers and sisters, they wouldn't, or my sister, my brothers, they would never take any of their legs off and give it to my mom. That's special for a birthday present. And they're like, oh no. But we was able to joke and things, and so my mom and my sister had left, and I went in for surgery, and I got out of surgery, and I was in the recovery room, and I didn't even know my leg was gone. I was in no pain, it didn't hurt, but my foot was itching. So I go down to scratch my foot, and it's not there. I'm like,
oh, you're having phantom pain.
It's already the phantom stuff, My mind's telling me that it was down there itching. I'm trying to find it, to scratch it, because it was itching. You got to scratch, you itch it. And I'm looking for it. I can't find it. I'm like, oh, wow, they did do it. Because when it was itching, I thought, oh, they got in there and they saw something. Maybe they didn't have to do it. Well, yeah, they did. And, but I was okay with it because I knew that I would be able to move on with my life now. So then I was, on crutches for a little while, and then I started going to the people who make my prosthetics over in Amherst, the Lime Cooler, orthotics and prosthetics. Amazing people. I still had a sore on the bottom of my stump, and I was already going to another place to be fitted for a leg. So this was like in January of 19. So in February, I was scheduled to have a leg. They was making it, this other place, but I wanted this special leg. So I got a hold of the Lime Coolers, and I took a picture of this leg. I was like, hey, can you guys make this? He goes, no. He said, that's off the internet. Everything you see on the internet, you're not going to be. You can't have it. It's not all true. I was like, all right. I said, well, I'm going to this company, and he goes, all right. He goes, well, when are you scheduled to an appointment over there yet? I said, well, they've already got me, I'm going to have a leg next month, I believe it's February the 15th of 2022. And he goes, can I look at it? I said, yeah. He looked at it, he goes, I'm not telling you what to do. He said, but you put a prosthetic on that, because you got a sleeve to hold your prosthetic on. Mm-hmm. He goes, that's going to get so infected because it's not healed. He said, that's got to be healed. I'm like, how bad I wanted to walk and listen. Now I'm the Kevin Rogers that's going to sit back and listen. And I listened to him, Paul Lime Cooler. He told me, he said, we can make you a leg, but you're not going to get it for a couple months, because that's got to heal. You need to go see a wound center, wound doctor, and get that healed some way, one way or another. I was like, all right. So I'm listening now. I'm being smart, instead of just throwing a prosthetic on and trying to walk. And so they're amazing. So, he has helped me tremendously. Everyone over there has helped me. So now, we're April. I've got some infection going on.
We got to take a commercial break.
Okay.
We'll have to take a little quick time out.
Okay.
So everybody that's watching, stay tuned. Part 2 of the Kevin Rogers story. And as we were last talking about, you were talking about your amputation on your leg. Let's continue there.
So in 22, I had multiple different small amputations on my, I already had my left leg amputated, so now in the right leg, right foot, they had amputated my middle toe and my big toe now. And then they were wanting to do more, and I asked them, I said, what's the final step here so I can move on with life? They said, well, probably like your left side, probably a below the knee amputation. And back then, and in So that was May of 2022, and then I still went to church, still believing, but I needed something a little bit different. So I wanted to do more work for God. Where I was going is far away, unable to do it. So I found Mount Harvest. Didn't know. I didn't even do any research here. I didn't even know who the pastor was. And I walk through the doors and I see a guy, Ed Dean. He's very dear to my heart. Made me feel like this was my home as soon as I walked in. He's like, come back here. He goes, I'll introduce you to our pastor and our assistant pastor. And back then, we had Pastor Carl. And then we had, Pastor Joe was the junior pastor, the senior and junior pastors. And I sat back there and that was in June whenever I had got to meet them. And so it brings me to July of 22. Pastor Carl, Pastor Joe, Mount Harvest had prayed dearly for me, prayed for me time and time again. I told him that I was gonna have my right leg amputated, and they're like, we had prayer, and then they have made me feel welcome ever since. And through my journey at Mount Harvest, I got to be with Pastor Carl whenever he was, he went through an episode where he was sick, and he was in the VA hospital. But when he came home, the guy loved to joke and loved to make me laugh. And he would always stop at the greeter's desk. He built the greeter's desk out there at Mount Harvest, and he said, I'd like for you to be back there. And I said, okay. So Pastor Carl was the one that put all the block on there, did the wall back there. He did it all, So he's very dear to my heart. But him and I got to spend a day together. He said, I think I need to get out of the wife's hair. He said, I think I'm driving her crazy. You want to go around? And we went to some salvage yards looking for truck parts. He said, we get tired, we can just sit down. I said, you better believe it. So him and I got to spend a day together. But after, I had my leg amputated, now I'm back to church. I come back here, and it's been a blessing. Every day that I walk in here to Mount Harvest is I'm always being fed. Pastor Carl was an amazing pastor. I learned so much from him. I got a lot from him. But I'm so thankful that Pastor Joe had followed his dad. And we've got Pastor Joe, because Pastor Joe's amazing. He's got a big heart. He's caring. He's a praying man. He's a man of God, and we're blessed to have him. So, now July, I have my leg amputated below the knee, and then I come home, and now I've got a prosthetic, and I'm on crutches because I ain't got a leg, and I go up 20 steps to get into my house. So I'm up there doing laundry. I have a shirt stuck on my crutch, and I go to reach over to get it. And when I did, my crutch kicked out, and I fell. And when I fell, I blew out like 108 stitches, I believe they said it was what it was. So my bathroom looked like a murder scene. And I had just started dating Laura. We had just started dating back in May, and I call her up. I'm like, hey, she lived in Greenwich at the time, and I was like, hey, you want to come over and kind of help me out a little bit? Yeah, what happened? She's such a loving, and she's always there for me. Her and my mom, blessed. I said, well, I had fallen, and I landed where they amputated because going back to being K-Raj, knowing it all, they give me a protector, but I'm just going in to do laundry. What do I need a protector to go from my living room to my bathroom? I didn't have it on, and that was the result of. So I had to go have it re-amputated in July. I believe it was like July 12th. So like a month later, I'm going back in for a whole another amputation, a revision. So they had to take a little bit more off where I had done the damage. And then, so I get my prosthetics, from Lime Coolers, and I'm doing great. Brings me to 2023. They had told me I had lost the eyesight in my right eye. So it's getting a little weak, and Laura and I both have. Tells me all the time if it gets to where I can't drive, I need to tell her, and I will, because I want everyone on the road, and along with myself, to be safe. But I think I do well. But in 2023, my airway had collapsed, and they went in and put a stent in down into my lungs, and to open that all up. And I can remember being in the recovery room, and I start coughing, and it comes back out. I can feel it. Every cough, it moved a little bit more. I'm like, still kind of under the anesthetic stuff, so I don't know how to call. I don't know. I'm like, so they hear me, and they come over, and they rush me back in, and they take it out. But they put a tighter one, a little bit bigger one in, too, so it wouldn't come out. But I had to stay in there in the Cleveland Clinic for 3 days, and then they, to see if it worked, see if I was able to breathe. I could walk around the halls, and I wasn't winded. I could breathe. I could lay down and breathe, and so